Good morning. My name is Laurence Drake and I'm the Managing Director of DAF Trucks Limited. Over the next 10 minutes, I intend to highlight how legislation, when thought through, sets a direction that enables the private sector to invest in requirements of the future. The climate is changing and actions need to start today. I'm sure you are all aware of the sound bites around dates in the future, and it's important to set targets. However, in having a target, it should not let us delay in putting together plans or even accepting the end date as the date to do it by. Climate change is happening now. We need to explore as many options as possible, agree direction and move forward. Today, I'd like to highlight how looking at some things differently enables us to make gains in decarbonisation. So I'd like us to focus on how two pieces of European legislation that will be implemented here in the UK are helping us to deliver on decarbonisation. These are the CO2 legislation and the change in the masses and dimensions legislation. In order to set any targets and ensure you are moving in the right direction, it is first important to get a baseline measurement that is agreeable to all. This enables you to agree where you are in order to be able to move forward. A new tool was created in order to have a consistent measure for CO2 emissions, and this was called the Vehicle Energy Consumption Calculation Tool, or VECTO for short. This covers buses and coaches, as well as trucks. The baseline value of CO2 was then calculated based on an average output from trucks registered by manufacturers between July 2019 and June 2020. CO2 reduction targets now require truck manufacturers to lower the CO2 output of their vehicles by 15% by 2020 and by a possible further 15% by 2030. This means from 2025 onwards, the CO2 output of registered trucks needs to be 15% lower compared to that baseline, or there will be significant financial penalties. In the first steps, the targets will cover large trucks, that's 4x2 and 6x2 rigids, and tractors over 16 tonnes. These vehicles do account for around 65% of all CO2 emissions from heavy-duty vehicles. A review will take place in 2022 to confirm the 2030 target level, together with possible targets at 2035 and 2040. The road to 2025 in terms of CO2 output is a descending line, and we need a progressive approach to comply to the value in 2025. The UK has agreed to use the same European-wide baseline data, but we will need to achieve the reduction targets based on UK registrations alone. So we now have a base, a timescale, and a target just a few years away. To reach such a target could seem impossible, but the EU wanted to help the private sector to give them a direction that would enable investment. They changed the legislation on the maximum length of a truck and trailer combination. This is no more a fixed value. The change in legislation allows manufacturers to design new trucks and cabs that support better aerodynamics. And it also enables manufacturers like DAF to address safety, especially for vulnerable road users, whilst providing a more spacious and comfortable working environment for the driver. It seems like such a small thing to do considering the gains made, and this came about through collaboration that is, of public and private sectors reviewing the options and implementing legislation that made the most sense to get the appropriate gains. The first discussions regarding the changes to the masses and dimensions regulations in Brussels date from 2012, with first concept studies performed up to 2014, a first draft published in 2015. New degrees of freedom were introduced with more length allowed. The EU is looking for a significant step in safety and is pushing the boundaries on the reduction of air drag. The years 2016 to 2018 were used by both government as well as DAF to further investigate the impact and work towards publication. From September 2020, longer vehicles are indeed allowed in the EU, and the UK is expected to follow suit this summer. An important step, as we project to be the first European OEM to introduce a completely new truck to take full advantage of this legislation. New mass and dimension regulation has made it possible to change the cab design, which in turn has made it possible to add more safety features. A current articulated combination, that's the tractor and semi-trailer, are legally bound to a maximum length of 16.5 metres. There are also other key dimensions relating to trailers, which effectively govern the maximum amount of load space and manoeuvrability requirements governed by turning corridor restrictions. The new legislation removes the maximum length and allows extra length in the front of the truck and the back of the trailer for improvement to aerodynamics. Importantly, the load space is not increased and the combination still needs to comply with the turn-in corridor requirements. Whilst the truck on the left demonstrates the optimum aerodynamic styling possible, now that the overall length is de-restricted, we have conducted extensive CAD and real-world testing. The results of these studies prove that using the entire length allowed by legislation improves aerodynamics by 23%. However, this futuristic shape also comes with a downside in terms of weight, vision, and manoeuvrability. This is why DAF has chosen for the most ideal and aesthetical shape. The compromise is to give up on 1% of aerodynamics, but the gain in direct vision and manoeuvrability is huge, and also the weight improvement. This also underlines the philosophy of DAF to take the world we live in into account. The 22% reduction in aerodynamic drag translates into a significant fuel saving of over 5%. So that, combined with other efficiency improvements with the new generation DAF, delivers a 10% overall fuel saving and carbon reduction. Here we see our current XF in blue with the front view vision line. The person in front of the cab is not visible without the front mirrors. That is shown by the dotted line from the mirror to the ground. For our new generation vehicles, we see the improved view line. The biggest advantage is the driver has a better view of small people. For example, children up to 1.15 metres in front of the truck are now visible. With the combination of the front view mirror, you can even see the person's feet. The lower window line continues through to the side window, improving direct vision to the side, which is very important for cyclists. The raked front profile is also designed to help reduce the impact on pedestrians in the event of low-speed collisions. And of course, with the longer cab, we can enhance the interior space for drivers who spend long periods living and working in their truck. Crucial if we are to retain drivers in the industry. And so we can see in practical demonstration of how careful the use of legislation developed with input from the industry is enabling us to make significant improvements in terms of fuel and carbon efficiency, whilst benefiting safety and making the driver's environment more spacious and comfortable. This illustrates that when government and the private sector work together, then legislation that enables investment can ensure real change is brought about. Thank you.